Hello and welcome to our 2021 Art League Student and Faculty Show. I'm Suzanne Bethel, Executive Director, and on behalf of the entire Art League, we are so delighted to have you here to celebrate the talent and hard work of our students, teachers, staff, and supporters. Thank you to our students and faculty and staff who pulled together to help our school and each other through a challenging year. Thank you to our outstanding faculty for their incredible dedication and the artistic inspiration that they provided to us individually and collectively. And to everyone in our community, we deeply appreciate your patience and flexibility and creativity when we had to close our buildings last March and redesign our curriculum for remote learning and social distance classrooms. We are so grateful to you for pulling together to help us rethink our approach to visual arts education and community programs. Truly, the Art League would not exist today without you. We want to applaud our faculty and students and staff today for creating and gathering for over 1,000 remote class sessions since the start of the pandemic. Many times, technology is only visible when things go wrong, and you made it go right. So thank you for helping make technology that invisible propeller that sustained our school and our mission. We have so many people to thank and celebrate, but we want to get right into the inspiring artwork and people that make up this year's student faculty show and our school community, including reflections from our faculty and awards commentary. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Proenza, and I'm the 2021 Art League Student Faculty Show Juror. I'm also a professor nearby at Marymount University in Arlington, where I teach painting, drawing, printmaking, etc. And I'm also the director of the Barry Gallery on the campus of Marymount. And I've also been an art critic. When I lived in New York City, I wrote for Art in America and the Brooklyn Rail doing exhibition reviews. I'm a representational artist. I found that art is the way that I figure things out, or I meditate on things, or I just try to make sense of things. And I think all art does that, in varying degrees. We make sense of the world through art. So that's my toolkit for making sense of things.
What was your process for judging our student faculty show?
Well, it was really interesting seeing the range of work and the high caliber of all of the work. And so the process really for me was, much like you would do if you walked into a physical gallery, first sort of surveying everything a few times, and I think then just sort of standing back and letting the work wash over me and trying to look at each piece carefully and connect with its content, which, as we know, is a product of, the subject matter and the form, and letting those things communicate it. And I think especially in the pandemic, I think so many people have found a greater connection to art, a greater need to make art, the connectivity that art provides. So I don't know if you guys always have so much work, but it was just great to see. It would be great to see anytime, but I think especially in the pandemic, it was really heartening to see how people are accessing their creativity, again, to make sense of the world, or perhaps to find some solace and relaxation. And so that was really nice.
What are your suggestions for artists entering a juried exhibition?
Well, my main suggestion is always submit and keep submitting. There, for any given show, there are usually way more entries than there are, awards, or sometimes if it's a juried exhibition, if you're ever in the position that your work was not selected, frankly, it doesn't mean that much, and you should always just keep on applying. Have I ever been rejected from an exhibition? Yes. And so we all are, and that's just part of the process. And the most important thing is to keep doing your work and keep getting it out there. I just want to say again how impressed I am with everybody's work. How moved I am by by the things that everybody is saying in their work. And once again, I want to encourage people to continue. I think what I like best about art is that it just doesn't end. Luckily, we can go on with it if our, eyes and hands hold up. It's something you can go on with for your entire life, and it's always building, so wherever you are with your art, you're in a good place, and the good news is, you have a lot to look forward to. So please keep going. Hi, everybody.
I'm getting no sound. And
still no sound.
I have a
My name is Kim Stenberg. I started painting in watercolor since 1994 or 5. It's been a long time. I took many classes at the school, and I work in other mediums, but people seem to like my watercolors the best. And one fellow teacher, Alice Kell, recommended me to the school director. And since I've been I've been a member for 25 years, in many shows, and so people at the league know me. So the school director hired me 4 years ago. So I'm relatively new, but I'm really having fun. I'm currently teaching two classes. One is a watercolor portrait. The other is watercolor from start to finish. I enjoy them both. My favorite genres are, I think, portrait, landscapes, and florals.
Would you tell us a little bit about the piece that you submitted for the faculty show, Ben and Audrey?
Yeah, they are my husband's great nephew and niece. They're twins. The picture was taken when they were 3, and I saw the picture on Facebook. I mean, there are some special pictures, right? So
Yeah.
I borrowed it in case it doesn't turn out well. And it was a class demo. The painting was done in entirety during class, 4 sessions. I was very happy about how it turned out, and they are very dear to me and to the family.
What have you learned from your students?
It's been a very long time that I was a beginner in watercolor, 25 years. So I had to work really hard to remember what it was like to be a beginner. And I can tell I have become a much better watercolorist just teaching, thinking about how to explain why I do things this way. And there is a limit on how many paints I can use in class, because for many beginners, watercolor paints are very expensive. So at the moment, I have a 10 paint on my palette for the class, and I have to limit myself to work within that parameter, and that has been a really good experience for me. Online teaching is no different from in-person teaching in that sense. I do a lot more demos because they're just watching. They paint along. So that's why I think Zoom classes are really, really good. There was a steep learning curve at the beginning, but for everybody. But now it's going well. There are many, many advantages. There are a few disadvantages, like the camaraderie among the students, among the class.
Sure.
But we can actually achieve that too. They converse and they talk. One really terrific thing about online classes is I have students from around the country.
Oh,
and
yeah.
also from elsewhere, outside of the United States. So the Art League School has become bigger, global.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for new or returning students?
Practice, 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 and not because the instructor tells you to do so, but because art is fun.
Yeah.
We're in the same boat. Art heals, and there's nothing like it.
Hi, my name is Susan O'Neill, and I have degrees in art, and this has been my whole life. I've moved a lot with my husband in the Navy, so I've had fantastic opportunities to show and do work really around the world. My real focus is figurative and also plein air, watercolor, oil, and charcoal drawing. I teach a expressive figure drawing and expressive watercolor. So these are both passions of mine, and in many ways they cross over in how these classes come out. They're not so different. You know, many of the similar ideas are present in both classes. I had known the staff at the Art League for many years prior to that, but it was only after that 2014 when I had a solo show at the gallery, and then there became some interest, and we weren't moving any longer, so I started teaching, I think, soon after that. The pandemic has been very interesting. I felt it was important to keep classes going. At first, you know, everyone was in shock, but very shortly after the Art League closed, I was asked if I wanted to consider anything, which I don't think they even knew yet at that time, but I felt that I need to try to keep something going. So I decided to just jump in and figure it out with technology very quickly. And it really surprises me still, all the opportunity that's come up and what's possible if we really, you know, push out of the box. The biggest challenges for me were trying to make everyone comfortable and have them receive an experience that was most like live. So what that means is I wanted them to be able to see what I wanted them to see without having them worrying about whether the right button was pushed. And that was a huge challenge early on, is trying to just enable everyone to see the same thing. But the opportunity is amazing. Many of my students now are across the country. So I think this opens up doors that we never thought possible. You never stop learning, and I know that's not new to anyone, but I'm learning all the time from them. I'm learning to be a better artist from them. I'm learning more about subjects that I thought maybe I knew enough about, and that there's no rules. There's always exceptions to rules. So I see it all the time in their work. I was there kind of as an instructor in the gallery. There was a class where we had dogs as our subject. And also, that was really fun because I got to treat them as if they're figurative, you know, the gesture that I love to teach in my classes, but if these animals just doing their thing. So you kind of have to have 3 drawings going at a time as each dog turns their head, you know, in different directions. And in that same theme, we had another model, and we were drawing from a live harpist playing, and that was something I never experienced before. You know, I think a harpist is great because they're not moving too much. At least their head maybe and body's in the same position, but you can grab onto different hand movements. And it was, for me, for expressive theme that I love to teach, it was really exciting. The piece that I have in the show is entitled Arabesque. That is a very important word to me, something that really resonates to me in how I teach, that everything is interconnected. And that piece was one that I did in July, you know, when this COVID had recently began. And it was the first time I ever worked from a model on an online site where there's figurative poses available. You know, before that, my work is usually done with a live model. So what I think impressed me or surprised me about that is, again, normally I like to work from life, but I was very inspired by that and trying to look beyond the stillness of a photograph to find the life and the movement. And I was pleased with that piece for that reason. And that actually was a class demo that I ended up working on, you know, more after class. So never underestimate working outside the box, feeling a little uncomfortable. I think that's really essential for learning and moving to another level. And not only to try new things, but through that, they learn more about their own style, what they can and cannot do. I really like to encourage this state of being uncomfortable to see it as a positive in their work. You know, I think that to not have expectations of their work and let it go a little bit and have more fun. And it's something I think we're always told that, you know, process is important, but I don't know that everyone really understands what that means. And when you don't have expectations, I think it enables you to shift maybe your intention of what you thought that piece should be. And through that, I think work will really be exciting. I just think that the Art League is an incredible resource, and I feel so blessed to be part of this. You know, I think students shouldn't be discouraged by what's happening now. Take what they can from it. I continually see how these classes are so valuable to people that are going through difficult times. And I've heard a lot of stories, and what I've been really struck by is that people have really opened up to me with very personal matters, and how they say without these classes, they don't know what they would have done. So for me, that's just something that's been on my mind a lot, that I thought I'd just like to share.
I fell in love with watercolor a little bit later than many. I wound up serving at the Baha'i World Center in Haifa, Israel, working as a librarian and archivist. And when an opportunity rose for me to take a watercolor class when I was living in Haifa, I took the opportunity. So I painted wishy-washy watercolors in class, and eventually then returned to the States and took a class at the Art League from Gwen Bragg. And then I decided I would pursue it on my own, because what that class really did for me was give me confidence in working. An opportunity arose for me to do some scientific illustration for the Museum of Natural History downtown. And so I took that opportunity and painted watercolor on the side. But the fact that the scientific illustration was doing very close-up work with a microscope on micro moths, which are really, really tiny. I mean, the wingspan is really small, then that got me looking at things really close up. And so that carried over to my watercolor painting, because I became fascinated with nature subjects, looking at them really close in. I fell into teaching watercolor totally by accident. I was called up one day out of the blue. I had been exhibiting when I got into the Art League shows, and I received a phone call from Jerry Gordon, who was the director of the Art League school at that point, and she asked me if by any chance I taught, because they'd seen my paintings in the gallery, and they were in need of a watercolor teacher soon. And that was a Wednesday, and I needed to be ready on Saturday. And so I swallowed hard, and I said, well, I have taught. I had taught a workshop on the entomological watercolor that I had taken a class at the Smithsonian in. I guess then I was signed up to teach on the following Saturday. And so I put things together as fast as I could, remembering what I had learned in Gwen's class, and so proceeded to teach. And basically, having fallen into it, it consolidated my love for watercolor. I left all the other media aside and concentrated solely on watercolor at that point. I teach beginning watercolor and intermediate advanced watercolor. Initially, when the call came out, the thought of teaching online absolutely petrified me. And it has been an astonishing learning curve for me, even though I am not the one handling all the camera switching and that sort of thing. It has been just amazing, and needing to prepare things that would be effective online was rather different from what I was doing in person. This was my painting for the faculty part of the show. And this theoretically is a red rose. I had photographed a bunch of red roses. I actually decided I would photograph it in black and white. And consequently, I was involved with the values. I could play with the color any way I wanted to. And so that sort of gave me carte blanche to basically work with the oranges and the purples. I love the combination of the oranges and the purples with some of the reds that are in between the two. And so that was good fun. Right now in my own painting, I want to do more experimental work, but staying within watercolor. A lot of watercolorists who then decide to go experimental usually wind up moving a great deal of it to acrylic, but I don't feel called to do that. I want to see what watercolor all by itself can do. So I'm playing with a lot of textural paints right now and doing more landscape work. Although right now I am concentrating on rocks rather than all the greenery around. the most amazing thing is to watch people flower. And I don't attribute it to me necessarily. I attribute it to the amount of time that they have put in on watercolor, the inspiration that comes from being in a class in person, and because you learn not just from the instructor. The instructor there is to give technical points and to perhaps push you in a way that you weren't being pushed otherwise, but the whole possibility of learning from other people who are struggling with some of the same things you are, that is so enriching. And that is what I have missed so much when teaching online. Many of my students are really colleagues of mine, and they have experience in watercolor that I don't. And so I am really inspired by what they produce, and also, I am able to ask them often how they did it. There's only one piece of advice if you're a watercolor student: paint, paint, paint more, and have a good time with it. Play with it, and you will learn so much just by the doing.
I am Kathleen Avila. I've been teaching here at the Art League School for almost 10 years, I think. And I started out as a teacher, art teacher in Fairfax County. I taught for 30 years. And then when I started classes here, I was asked would I be willing to teach here as well. And so that has grown from me teaching kids to now teaching adults, and we do creative hand building. So it's not just pots and cups. We have a different theme, at least several themes per semester that we create, and everybody is able to interpret it to their best ability in their own style. So we have a lot of fun coming up with new ideas, new ways of surface decorating and creating. And I also show my work at the Art League Gallery. I consider myself to be a doll artist, so I love fancy and whimsy, and especially depicting minorities into beautiful, fanciful pieces, which you don't see often. Just with the people that I have in my class, I think we've all grown together as a family. And like I said, I've had the same group of students more or less for the past 6 years. And we are at the point now we teach each other. If somebody finds a new technique, they bring it in and share it. I love it. This is like our therapy.
And I can tell you, Kat is the most outstanding teacher that Art League has. She challenges us every single lesson. And actually how I started, I took the children's class because I thought it would be cool to do it together with children. So that was my first with Kat, with the children's class. And she told me, "You're welcome to the adult class."
How has it been teaching since the pandemic or during the pandemic?
Well, really, we never skipped a beat. When the classes were canceled here, I set up a Zoom class and went on and did it that way, and still gave them themes that they could work on at home. And then each week we would critique and evaluate each piece. So it was a good time to just stop, reflect, and come up with some other new ideas. I get a lot of influence and inspiration from different African communities. And so the one that I submitted for the student faculty show represents my love of nature. So you will see that it's holding a jawbone. Someone found that and gave it to me. A seed pod, a wasp nest, a little bee. So everything that I do, it's all about energy, earth energy, love, and bringing all those aspects together.
Do you have any advice for your students or just students at the Art League here in general?
You know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I want to do that or try out for the gallery when I get better. But I say, try. You never know. Art is something that comes from your soul, from your spirit. And I say create. Even if it's not accepted into a gallery or not for sale, do it because it makes you feel good. It's your passion, it's your love. So just create. It's a very spiritual experience.
I was kind of frustrated because I was at a point where I knew I wanted to grow in ceramics. So I started reaching out and found a sculpture of hers of a monkey in a man's suit. And I looked at it, I didn't know anything about CAD, I didn't know anything about the Art League, and I went, that's the teacher I want to study with. Quite frankly, it's just fun to be here. She makes it a lot of fun.
The Art League has been very good to me. When I first started trying to show my work, I would never get accepted, and I can see where I grew, and through the help of Rose, who used to be the director there, and some of the others encouraging me. I got to have my first solo show there, and my son has had several solo shows, and so we're very appreciative of their support and being there for us.
My name is Peter Ulrich. I've been living in the area for over 50 years, and I've been doing art all my life. My dad was a good amateur artist, and I did a lot of painting with him. I did a few watercolors in high school and won a state of Connecticut prize once for watercolor. Then I kind of gave it up for years. I married an artist, and she and I painted en plein air together. In the mid-90s, I was visiting my daughter, who was a student at Oxford in England. We were visiting homes in Oxford, and everyone seemed to have watercolors on the wall. So I got inspired, and I went to a store and bought a watercolor kit and got on my daughter's bicycle and rode around Oxford doing watercolors. And lo and behold, one day I sold one. Some gentleman came up and watched me paint, and after about 20 minutes, he said, "I'd like to buy that." "How much?" I said, 20 pounds. So anyway, we got back to DC, and I looked up the Art League, visited, went into the office to register for a course. And I asked them if they had any examples of the instructor's art. And the young lady at the desk turned around and said, "Well, that painting there is by Gwen Bragg." And I said, "She's the one." I just loved her work instantaneously. So I studied with Gwen Bragg and with Ted Betts, and then unfortunately Ted Betts passed away in 2005. And before he did, he wrote a letter or an email to the Art League office recommending that I replace him. The Art League called me and said, "Would you take over?" So halfway through the spring term in 2005, I took over his classes, and I've been there ever since.
Could you tell us a little bit about the piece for the faculty show? It's Summer Storm, Eastern Shore. Can you tell us the story of that painting?
Well, it's just a photo from the Eastern Shore, magnificent black thunderclouds kind of departing, which the rain was over and the storm was departing. And so the sun was low in the sky, illuminating the clouds, warm yellows and oranges and reds. And I've got an iPhone filled with sunsets, and I make it a point of, I always check the sunset time each morning. But 10 minutes before that time, I go out and stand on my hill and watch the sunset. And about 50% of the time, the sunset is really very, very interesting and glorious.
What has your experience been like teaching during the pandemic in the various stages of lockdown?
It's been frankly amazing. Kathy Cohen, your administrator at the school, kept encouraging me. I wanted no part of it. I said, that can't work. People, little people on the screen and me painting, and then what are we going to do? How are we going to critique? I just had 100 questions. And then I began to read kind of testimonials from teachers who had tried it, people on the faculty at the Art League had started teaching and were saying, there's a lot to this. You really should try it. And Kathy kept urging me, and finally I said, okay, let's give it a try. So I designed the class to be 45 minutes of my demonstrating, hour and a half or so, maybe hour and 45 minutes of student painting, and then 45 minutes or so of critique at the end for 3 hours. And I did it that way because I had read about Zoom fatigue, that you don't want to lock people into the screen for more than an hour. And that's kind of how I ran my classes in person anyway. So I started doing it, and gee, within about 2 weeks, I said, this is amazing, and the students reacted the same way. They said for example, in the classroom, we have 25 students, and they gather around to watch me paint. It's only the 10 or so that are in the front of the crowd who actually get to see the painting being done. So the biggest change, I think, is that everyone gets to see the demo up close, really up close. I mean, I have a camera and I fill the screen with my painting. All the feedback I've got has been positive about the demo. And then the critique allows each of their paintings to be shown to every other student. So the technology is really marvelous.
Do you have any advice for new or returning students?
My general advice to the students is to do more than just take the 1 or 2 classes a week and paint only during those periods, especially during the lockdown and isolation. It's a wonderful opportunity to discipline yourself to carving out an hour every day or every other day to paint. And I tell my students in watercolor that you can tell if you've been painting enough when you open up your paint box on the day of the class. If the paint is hard and dry, that means you haven't been painting enough. 3 most important things to advance in any field are practice, practice, and practice. Well, I feel honored and blessed to be on the faculty, to be part of such a wonderful organization. Hang on, we're going to get back to normal, and I think an improved normal with the combination, the hybrid of technology and in person. So I think we have good days ahead of us.
Okay, I'm Marsha Steiger, and I've been an artist at the Torpedo Factory for many years and a teacher for the Art League. When I became an instructor for the Art League, I was actually the gallery director at the same time. I was doing that for the Art League, and as a gallery director, it was a great opportunity to see a lot of artwork, meet a lot of people, and connect their artwork together. And I did that for 4 years, and then I was given a studio in the factory. So then I started working for the Art League teaching too. And I taught children, and I've taught, mostly painting and abstraction, because that's the way I work. In my personal work has evolved, I think, because of the things the Art League gives people to do and how they allow people to exhibit their work. My personal work and the work I put in the exhibit for the Art League is a continuing idea that I work on, thinking a lot about color, but also thinking about structure. So the pieces that I put in are called canvas graft, and they're a diptych. And when I start the pieces, I start them with an organic kind of feel, a very gestural way to work with them. And then I kind of tighten them down with more of a sometimes organic and sometimes more formal line. And so it gives the viewer the opportunity to look through the painting to the back and then come forward to the front again, kind of reminding them it's on a canvas. I started it, I think it was in 2004, making these ideas with a lot of tape. And so I was taping off sections and using a lot of horizontal strata. And as I was working on the format, I would save the tape and I would incorporate it into the next graph. And these were all kind of worked on as a unit. So I'd have 12 of them up in the studio looking at them, and it looked like I was trying to make hula skirts because I had all this tape kind of saved so that I could reattach it to one of the other pieces. So it was kind of for me, it feels like when you work in a series, the artwork's kind of collaborating with each other, and they're helping me find the path to completing them. So it's and so I stay with the word graft because of that. I continue a lot of the times with the horizontal banding. Now, the piece I have in the instructor's exhibit is a variation because the banding is vertical. So that's a big change for me. So a big moment. Oh, vertical. No. So yeah, I've been teaching for the Art League for 20 years. It's been a long time, and I've enjoyed it and grown with it. And the Art League is just a wonderful resource. It's a treasure. I have a wonderful group of people who have been doing excellent work. So it's really fun to see that happen and be able to be a bystander, kind of hopefully nurturing and helping along the way. The online experience opens it up to the whole world. And I have people that have been my students before, but one lady, Susan Akawa, lives in Hawaii. So she comes in on the Sunday class, which I make a little bit later in the day because I have a wonderful friend, Bettina Aten, who's in New Mexico. And so that allows people on the West Coast to not have to get up at 4 a.m. to have a class. But and so it's really remarkable in that way, that we can draw from so many people all over the place. And it's different, than being in the classroom. That's true. But there's a lot of things I can show people that is, I think, more specific and helpful. And so I do like it. I do. And it's funny, I ask my students, thinking they're going to say, oh no, I want to be, in person. And they're like afraid I'm not going to do online classes because they're from here and there. So I think there's a good balance. Both of those ideas, I think, would work well always. So I kind of love the process of thinking up the lessons and connecting with other artists that might, come in and they can respond to. So that's all a creative process for me that I'm pretty hooked on. So it was good, when I got to start teaching classes. I think that was really good for me to have that goal, again, instead of kind of a nebulous, like with the pandemic, instead of kind of dwelling on that, then you get to go forward and think about teaching and what you're going to do. And so it's a real creative, and I think it's real important for me to have students to talk to and react to in my own artwork too. I think the ones that progress the fastest are the people who are willing to put the time in. All of the ways they connect with it are good, because I think it's good for your soul to think about art and kind of disappear a little bit from the world and just be in your creative space. But the people who really put the time in and really move forward on their own idea, you can see them just moving right up the ladder. They just go, the more time you spend working at your craft, the better you get. And just like anything, yeah.
Well, I'm Jackie Saunders. I've been at the Art League for a gazillion years. I began many years ago coming here and taking classes with Marge Alderson. I took gesture with Avis Fleming, and when she decided she didn't want to teach gesture anymore, she asked me to. And so I've been teaching gesturing the figure in ink for a long time, and then I began teaching the watercolor figure, and then I began teaching faces in watercolor. I didn't call it portraits because portraits are so, what's the word? Frightening. You feel like you have to get exactly correct. And I try to teach painting loosely, painting with pieces of color or pieces of value. Most often I start with quick contour line and then develop the form with washes of pure ink and or diluted ink. And I draw pretty much a semi-blind, meaning I keep my hand on the paper as much as I can. I try not to take my hand off and criticize what I've done. I try to feel as if I am caressing whatever form I'm looking at. I love working from the live model. And usually most of the poses in the gesture classes, at the most are 20 minutes. And it forces you to get as much of the figure that excites you in those 20 minutes. And when the 20-minute ends, you have to stop. And it usually means that you've expressed what really was important to you.
How has it been teaching during the past year, during the pandemic?
Oh, it's been challenging. I've done it here with the Art League, and they've been wonderful. They're Zooming, they're doing the technology. The hard part is I really like to interact with people. And in the beginning, I felt so frozen because I felt I was talking to outer space. They email me, and I do hear back from them. And they've all enjoyed the classes. So it's been rewarding to me because it's given me the opportunity to teach, and I love to teach. And it's given the people the opportunity to paint. And some of them are really enjoying doing the Zoom. They say they can actually see it better on the computer or with the camera than they can in a crowded classroom. But I do miss interacting with people. And I really believe there's always something right in what a student has done. There's something good in everything everybody does because it's their expression, it's their personality that's coming out. And I want to acknowledge that. I don't want to impose my will on them, and yet at times I think I should because I'm teaching and this is what I'm teaching. So that's the challenge, how to be critical, but also instructive and encouraging, because we all need to be encouraged.
Can you talk a little bit about the piece that you submitted to the student show?
I submitted it because my son thinks that dogs that are doing something is more exciting to look at than just a dog that's staring vacantly at a camera. But when a dog is doing something they love, he thinks they're alive. And so he loved this one with the dog with the ball in his mouth. And so that's the one I submitted. Teaching the doggy class, 2 people have said to me they've had more joy in painting doing these dogs. It's been their most joy in painting. And that is a great joy to me, to know that they are getting joy.
Do you have any advice for students of all kind or your students?
Just keep doing it. And thank God that you have the desire to do it. It's a passion. It's a passion for me. If you have that passion, feed it. Take whatever class you want to take whatever teacher you want to take, put your best effort into it, and be pleased with something in every piece you've done. John Sloan, the ashcan painter, was a teacher, and he said, if there's one good thing in a drawing, it was worth it. And there's always going to be one good thing in the piece that you've done, and it's worth it. And keep doing it, everybody. The Art League is wonderful.
The Equal Merit Award is funded by the Art League. This award is given at the discretion of the juror to students who show great artistic promise and not just students exhibiting mastery of their medium. In keeping with the League's mission, these Equal Merit Awards are meant to challenge and nurture developing artists to hone their craft and to show their work in a professional capacity through the League's Exhibiting Artists program. Our first Equal Merit Award winner is May O'Brien for Beau.
What I like about this work is how the artist has captured the sitter in this really pensive quality. We feel like we can see both the artist and the sitter thinking. And so I find it really compelling for that reason. And also this portrait just seems very specific about this particular person. It's very touching in that way and rendered beautifully with really nice mark making and attention to values and shape.
The next award winner is Daphne Hammond for Turban.
This is an exceptional portrait drawn with a great delicacy and a great attention for detail, for light, and even for color. It's a minimal color palette in drawing media, yet there's a great implication of the warmth of the skin and the coolness of the shadows with the way the artist has drawn it. It's just very delicate and beautiful.
Kat Logan, A Quick Visit.
This painting is just so lovely in its touch with the paint and its attention to detail and this feeling of getting this look at this bird that's about to take off in flight again. I think the color palette is really beautiful here in its range of warm to cool and to really create the form of the bird in space. Beautiful work.
Michio Mizuchi, Cold Front is Coming.
I was really impressed by this work in its abstract painterly quality and the way that it feels like a cold front without necessarily being literal. It's using a more abstract idiom. And I also find the very horizontal format to be interesting and to work with the idea of the title, something like sweeping in with this weather. And the color too promotes that sensation of the cold front.
Joy Bird, Persephone's Return.
I was really impressed by this work of mosaic. What a beautiful design it is and how meticulously crafted it is. I love the suggestion of spring with Persephone's return, and it really feels spring-like. And I think it also speaks to our DMV area with cherry blossoms, telling us it's spring at last. So wonderful work.
Judith Jurica, Left by the Tide.
This is a really interesting work of fabric and stitching to create this left by the tide feeling suggested by the title. And you can see how well chosen all the colors are to give us that feeling of sand and shells and even sunlight. So I think it's just very, very well done, very smart in every section of it. Really wonderful to look at. I think the texture is also created by the different kinds of fabric and by the stitching really add a lot to this really cool piece.
Annika Papke, Bathroom Bloom.
Well, first of all, I have to say the title makes me chuckle. You know, I think other things could be suggested by a bathroom bloom, but I love that it's actually a plant. And I really like the colors in this work and the suggestion of light. We almost feel like the illumination of the leaves with the sunlight coming in. I also like the composition with that strong diagonal with the shadow. and the geometry of the tiles juxtaposed with the organic forms of the plant. Finally, I just think it's kind of unexpected. You know, we find this lovely corner of a bathroom that can be a subject of a painting.
Phil Shelton, Hooper's Island.
This is a really striking work. I love the light and the barrenness. We see these trees in the distance that look distressed. The clouds are so lit up. The sense of values and textures throughout the photographs are really striking. And the suggestion of the road puts us there exploring this space. So I think this is really effective and quite beautiful photograph.
Robin Jordan, Industrial Fish.
This sculpture is really quite amazing in its innovation with metal and how the fish has come from this industrial medium. I love the color that has been achieved and the sense of texture. It does really manage to feel like seaweed and coral and plant life that you would find underwater. So this is a really nice work.
Sarah Bukowski Lovelace, A Rainbow for Kai.
This is a really striking abstract. What I really like about it is the sense of pictorial space that we see, that there are some areas really popping forward, and then we go into the depths of the greens that seem to be the deepest layer. And I very much like the layering in this work and the suggestion made by the title and the mark making. Really an accomplished and lovely work.
Michelle Dimino, Zygote M217.
I was especially struck by the color in this work. It's so layered and beautiful. It looks like it has possibly some chance element with the colors being allowed by the artist to drip and merge together, and also a great control with the colors. So I think this is really exceptional in that way. And this is another piece that really does a good job suggesting depth and light in terms of the color.
Christina Andreasen, Above and Beyond.
It just has a really thoughtful quality and it's very well crafted. I also like the way that it's photographed with some light falling on it from the window. Really helps us to get a sense of its form and space. Really well done.
Brittany Smith, 2021 Self-Portrait.
This self-portrait makes me smile, much as the person depicted makes me smile. And there's just such a wonderful energy, such a nice handling with the water media and the color, such a spirited portrait. I really love this.
Marte McGrath, Rise Up.
This abstract piece I find really compelling in its use of a sort of fractured space that seems a little bit cubist to me. Even the color harkens back to the early cubism by Braque and Picasso, yet it has a contemporary spin, especially with the addition of this kind of greenish yellow. I like the base that it creates. You know, you feel like you may be looking at several views simultaneously. The mark making is really strong, the sense of vividity and the way the eye is led all around the rectangle. It's strong work.
Stephanie Chang, 8 Years.
I'm impressed by the delicacy of this portrait and the sense of the artist's concentration, really noticing every aspect of the sitter. The use of color is really well done. We see throughout the face the alternating uses of warm and cool colors to suggest the three-dimensionality of the head and face. I think the background cool colors are well chosen also to augment that, and so is the red of the shirt or dress to bring the figure forward in space. But most of all, I just feel that the portrait is so sensitively rendered and so patient in its construction.
Katrina Day, Iridescent Crescent.
This is a really lovely work, very delicately constructed with the small mosaic pieces. And I also think it's well photographed.
Rebecca Overly, Metamorphosis.
I love the way that other parts suggest butterflies, as the title also suggests, with metamorphosis. And I love the way the eye is led all around the form to travel to each butterfly-like figure. And I think that just as an insect transforms in the metamorphosis, so too does some of the materials that we find familiar. If they were separate, they become really expressive in this sculpture.
Tom Johnson, Rocks in the Swamp.
This is a really accomplished work. I find the title compelling and raises questions about the source of inspiration behind the work. Even I think if you don't have the title, the suggestion of the rocks is really an interesting and original design on this vessel. And we can see also just how well formed it is. It's so symmetrical. It's so beautifully glazed. It just seems exquisite in really every way.
And finally, Karen Whitman.
This oil painting, I think, does such a nice job as a landscape painting. It's also really nicely handled with the paint itself being as much part of the subject matter as the spring path scene. It looks as though the paint is heavily applied. We really see the artist's enjoyment in the substance of the paint. I also think that the color is really well done. Anyone who's ever attempted a landscape painting knows that greens in particular can be so various and rather tricky to get right. So this also achieves the colors extremely well.
The next prize is the Jenny Lee Knight Creativity Award. This award is in memory of Jenny Lee Knight, a longtime Art League student. This monetary award for $100 is for the student who may not necessarily be as technically adept as some other entrants, but has taken a creative risk or tries unexpected design or color solutions, or whose personal voice shines through what might be a conventional class exercise. This year, the prize goes to Nada Ramanos Abizade for My Lung, My Rock.
Well, I was impressed with the personal voice and risk-taking in this. I think that all of us who view this work will wonder at the story behind it because of its title, My Lung, My Rock. It's very true to the shape of the lung. The medium really helps convey the subject matter, and it just feels as if the artist is putting something quite personal and really important out there for the viewer to take in and contemplate, to look at, to think about.
The next award is the Potomac Valley watercolorist Carolyn Grosse-Gawarecki Award for Best in Show Watercolor. This award is a $100 package, $75 cash award plus $25 for art supplies.
The watercolor handling is so fluid and so adept. The color also is spot on. All of us who know these vegetables intimately will really recognize their character.
This next prize is the Dennis Davis Award for Excellence in Ceramic. Dennis Davis was a former chair of the Art League Ceramic Department and was a Torpedo Factory artist for many years. Dennis was instrumental in forming the League's Ceramics Department Associates Program, and he was a popular and well-respected ceramic instructor. This award is given in memory of Dennis and in honor of his long career as a gifted ceramic artist in traditional and functional ceramic form. Barbara Jones Wilson is the winner of this award for her work, Alika Most Beautiful, and the award comes with a prize of $200.
I think it's impressive as a portrait. It's impressive as a work of ceramics. It's impressive in its use of color. All around, I think it's highly original and extremely well done.
The next award is the D.G. Watling Memorial Award in the amount of $150. This award is for students whose artwork represents the best in show for pastels in memory of D.G. Watling. D.G. was a longtime student at the Art League and a dedicated pastel artist. Her family and friends, as well as the Art League instructor Nancy Freeman, initiated this award shortly after D.G.'s passing in 2013 as a testament to her enthusiasm and passion for art and creative expression through pastel painting. The winner of this award is Paula Sutherland for Portrait of Sue.
This portrait really exemplifies excellence in the use of pastel. We think of pastel primarily as a drawing medium, but it also works as a bridge to painting. And this portrait exemplifies that so well with the clearly drawn passages, but also the rather painterly blending of color. The use of color is so strong to bring out the portrait. The artist has just done such a marvelous job of working the medium of pastel to create this really lively, beautiful portrait.
For our final award, the Art League Award for Best in Show goes to Daniel Horowitz for Rainbow Coalition.
This photograph is immediately gripping, in part being a night photograph with the figure of Martin Luther King Jr. lit up and sort of presiding over this group of cyclists in DC. Viewing this photograph causes us to reflect on the events of the past year and all the tumult, not only of the pandemic, but also of the killings of Black citizens and the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't know exactly what the gathering at the MLK Jr. Memorial was for in terms of the time when this is photographed, but like all works of art, this really has this strong suggestion of the times we're living in, a powerful moment captured. The color and the light is so beautiful in this work too. It's amazing that it's a night photograph, yet we see so many distinct greens, for example, in the background, and we see the various colors of the clothing of the cyclists and all the different illuminations of the bicycle lights and the lighting of the memorial. So I think in really every way, in terms of both form and subject matter, this is a truly powerful work.
Thank you, Mary, for your commentary on the award-winning artworks. And congratulations to all of our awardees in this year's Student Faculty Show.